on First at 9 this Sunday, the 1st of March 2026. Persian panic. Iran's supreme leader assassinated amid soaring Middle East tensions. Vows and violence. Qatar condemns Iran's attack, pledges full right to respond under international law. Israel vows to neutralize 2,500 Iranian military personnel. Ambassador hails potential for regime change in Iran. Stranded travelers. All flights to the Middle East halted. Ministry of Foreign Affairs urges Sri Lankans in the Middle East to stay in touch with embassies. Fuel rush. Fear of fuel shortage sparks long queues at filling stations island-wide.
Kalin baby so rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Singha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world, brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, a top story tonight, the Middle East faces unprecedented escalation as the United States and Israel launched massive missile strikes on multiple Iranian cities, prompting widespread retaliation from Tehran. The attacks resulted in hundreds of casualties, extensive regional damage, and the confirmed death of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, intensifying global concern and prompting calls for urgent de-escalation. According to the latest updates, the US military says 3 US service members have been killed in action and 5 seriously wounded during operations against Iran.
The United States and Israel launched massive joint missile strikes on multiple Iranian cities yesterday, prompting swift retaliation from Tehran with missile attacks across the Middle East. Military operations conducted by the United States and Israel inside Iran marked the most intense escalation since the June 2025 war, despite several rounds of talks previously held between Washington and Tehran. According to the Iranian Red Crescent, at least 201 people across the country were killed in the airstrikes, with 747 others injured. One strike reportedly killed at least 148 children at a girls' elementary school, leaving a further 95 injured. In response, Iran launched retaliatory strikes against Israel and several countries in the Middle East, including Bahrain, Oman, Dubai, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar and Jordan, targeting US military bases in the region. Amid the attacks, Dubai International Airport and the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai sustained damage. A spokesperson for the Dubai airport in a statement said that emergency response teams were immediately deployed and are managing the situation in coordination with the relevant authorities. The spokesperson further revealed that 4 staff members sustained injuries and received prompt medical attention. According to airport sources, most terminals had already been cleared of passengers due to contingency plans already in place. Abu Dhabi airport was also targeted, with 1 fatality reported and 7 others injured. For a second consecutive day, several explosions were heard in Dubai, a major regional business hub, and over Qatar's capital Doha, following Iran's retaliatory strikes on Gulf states, according to witnesses. Meanwhile, the Dhaka commercial port in Oman was targeted by 2 drones. Oman's Maritime Security Center reported that an oil tanker was struck off the coast of Oman, injuring 4 people. Iran fired at least 137 ballistic missiles and 209 drones at the United Arab Emirates yesterday, said the UAE Defense Ministry, adding that the vast majority were intercepted, with the exception of 14 drones that made impact. Speaking to foreign media, UAE Minister of State for International Cooperation Reem Al-Hashimi confirmed that the United Arab Emirates could assume a more combative role if Iran continues launching missiles and drones at the Gulf nation. Meanwhile, Iran also launched ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv, damaging around 40 buildings and killing 2 people. Another Iranian missile struck Beit Shemesh near Jerusalem, injuring 20 people and killing 8 people. Iran subsequently launched a fresh round of strikes on Tehran, targeting the headquarters of the Iranian armed forces. Israeli officials claimed that a majority of Iran's senior military leaders were killed in the strikes. As exchanges continue, foreign media reported that the FBI's counterterrorism and counterintelligence teams have been placed on elevated alert across the United States. The United States has released footage of its joint strike with Israel on Iran, showing fighter jets taking off and missiles being launched from the US Navy ships, including the USS Gerald R. Ford, during the operation. As the Middle East region remains engulfed in escalating missile exchanges, Iran has confirmed that Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in a joint military operation carried out by the United States and Israel. Iranian state media reported that several of his relatives also died in the strikes. US and Israeli officials stated that he was killed in coordinated attacks targeting the Iranian leadership. US President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social that his death represented the single greatest chance for Iranian people to take back their country. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said Khamenei was killed in the opening blow of the operation. Reza Pahlavi, the eldest son of Iran's late Shah, described the moment as potentially the beginning of Iran's great national celebration, though not the end of the round. Ayatollah Ali Hosseini Khamenei had ruled Iran since 1989, following the death of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. A 40-day mourning period has been declared, and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian stated that Iran considers retaliation against the United States and Israel a legitimate right and duty, pledging to hold those responsible accountable and respond with full force. Following confirmation of the Supreme Leader's death, thousands gathered in Mashhad to mourn. However, foreign media also reported celebrations both within Iran and abroad among segments of the Iranian diaspora. Meanwhile, protests erupted in Pakistan over the assassination of Iran's Supreme Leader. Clashes were reported in Karachi after protesters breached the outer wall of the US consulate, leaving 9 people dead. The Supreme Leader's death also sparked several protests across the Kashmir region. In an official statement, Russian President Vladimir Putin described the targeted killing of Iran's Supreme Leader as a cynical murder that violated all norms of human morality and international law. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said that the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was a defining moment in Iran's history, highlighting uncertainty over the country's future direction. Following the Supreme Leader's death, Iran announced that senior cleric Ayatollah Ali Reza Harafi would serve as interim Supreme Leader and head of the Temporary Leadership Council. Iranian state media also confirmed the deaths of several senior officials, including Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Abdul Rahim Musavi, Defense Minister Aziz Nazirzadeh, Commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Major General Mohammad Pakpour, and Secretary of Iran's Defense Council Ali Shamkhani. As tensions in the Middle East continue to capture global attention, Pope Leo XIV today expressed deep concern over the situation in Iran and the wider region while speaking at the Vatican. He called for an end to the spiral of violence before it becomes an irreparable abyss. He further stated that he has appealed to all parties involved to cease hostilities, warning of the possibility of a tragedy of enormous proportions. Meanwhile, several international organizations have condemned the US-Israeli attacks on Iran and called for a return to dialogue to prevent further escalation. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said in a statement that he was deeply touched by the unfolding situation across the Middle East. The United Nations Children's Fund also issued a statement expressing grave concern following reports of strikes in Iran and across the region, highlighting the severe risks faced by the children. Amid the escalating crisis, the United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session during which diplomats from various countries delivered sharply divided statements regarding the US-Israeli attacks on Iran and the broader regional consequences. At the session, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called for an immediate cessation of hostilities and urgent de-escalation. Iran's representative condemned what he described as US and Israeli aggression, while Israel's permanent representative to the UN, Danny Danon, stated that the joint strikes were necessary to counter what he called an existential threat. The US permanent representative to the UN, Mike Waltz, emphasized that the action was aimed at weakening Iran's missile capabilities. Widespread travel disruption to and from the Middle East continued today as airlines cancelled flights through key regional hubs that have become the target of Iranian retaliation for hosting US military bases. Gulf carrier Etihad Airways suspended its flights to and from Abu Dhabi until March 2nd, while Qatar Airways, another Gulf airline, said in an update today that its flight operations remain temporarily suspended due to the closure of Qatari airspace. Other notable airlines that have cancelled flights include Lufthansa, Lanka, Air France, British Airways, Air India and Turkish Airlines. Flights are not currently operating to and from Dubai, a popular tourist hotspot, after Dubai airports yesterday shuttered operations at its main airports. Overall, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Israel, Bahrain and Qatar have closed their airspaces, while neighboring countries have also implemented restrictions. The closure of Iran's airspace has now been extended until at least March 3rd, with further extensions possible. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister has reiterated that Tehran will continue to strike US military bases in the Middle East in response to American and Israeli attacks, while US President Donald Trump has warned that continued attacks on US bases will be met with severe retaliation.
Central Finance
Now, off the back of these developments, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who served as Iranian president from 2005 until 2013, was killed in an Israeli-US airstrike, the Iranian labor news agency reported. The international report said that the strike hit Ahmadinejad's residence in Nanak, northeast Tehran, killing him and several bodyguards. Now, in other news, the state of Qatar has strongly condemned the targeting of Qatari territory with Iranian ballistic missiles and stated that it reserves the full right to respond to this attack in a manner proportionate to the nature of the aggression. Meanwhile, Israel's ambassador to Sri Lanka stated that the Israeli mission will continue targeting 2,500 Iranian military personnel.
Qatar's foreign ministry strongly condemns Iran's ballistic missile attacks as a violation of its sovereignty, security and regional stability. Issuing a statement, Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs affirms that the state of Qatar reserves its full right to respond to this attack in accordance with the provisions of international law and in a manner proportionate to the nature of the aggression, in defense of its sovereignty and in protection of its security and national interests. Qatar emphasizes its long-standing commitment to dialogue with Iran, rejects the attacks as inconsistent with good neighborliness and highlights its neutral role in regional conflicts. The country also condemns similar violations against Kuwait, UAE, Jordan and Bahrain, expressing solidarity with these states. Qatar calls for an immediate halt to escalation, a return to negotiations and urgent efforts to contain the crisis to protect regional security and prevent wider conflict. Meanwhile, Israeli ambassador accredited to Sri Lanka during an interview with Derana said that Israeli operations will continue targeting 2,500 Iranian military personnel.
We are in the midst of an operation. We don't know yet how it's going to end, but what we are doing now at this point is continuing to target 2,500 military targets with the aim of achieving this goal and hopefully also to give a chance to the Iranian people to embrace this opportunity and change the regime of Iran. We're taking action above the skies of Iran to try to neutralize any future attacks against countries in the region. The Israeli Air Force working at full capacity in order to defend not only Israel but also in coordination with the Central Command of the American forces in the region to neutralize attacks. Today the world is much less dependent on oil coming from our region, but still very substantial. I think that the continuation of our military action, together with the overwhelming force of the United States, is going to ensure that the Iranian capability of hitting the oil industry in our region is not going to be substantial. And therefore, I'm pretty optimistic that when these hostilities end, price of oil will stabilize as well. We know that what is at stake. We are determined to neutralize the Iranian threat of elimination of the State of Israel, and we are hopeful that soon enough we will see stability coming back to our region, and we'll be able to exploit the many opportunities we have with countries in the region and with India to cooperate and to prosper for the benefit of our peoples.
දිවයිනේ ප්‍රථමයෙන් අටක් දායද කළ සන්නාමය බණ්ඩාරති සානායක ඉකෝන් BS මුළු දිවයිනටම online.
Now, amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, Sri Lanka's ambassador to Israel, Nimal Bandara, claims that although the situation remains strained, developments are being closely and continuously monitored. He further assures that all Sri Lankan nationals are safe at this time. Meanwhile, when contacted by Derana, Sri Lankan embassies across several Middle Eastern countries confirmed that situations within their respective host nations remain calm and peaceful.
As tensions escalate in the Middle East, the Sri Lankan government has expressed deep concern over the rapid uptick in hostilities, which pose a serious threat to regional stability and to international peace and security. The government has called on all concerned parties to exercise maximum restraint and to take immediate and decisive action to de-escalate tensions. Due to the closure of airspace across several Middle Eastern countries, all flights scheduled to depart from Bandaranaike International Airport to the Middle East today have been temporarily suspended. Airport sources disclosed that 74 flights scheduled to arrive at and depart from Katunayake since yesterday, when the fighting began, have been cancelled. The Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka, however, assured that despite the flight cancellations in the region, other flights remain operational into other parts of the world. Meanwhile, the officer in charge of Katunayake Airport requests passengers whose final destination is the Middle East or those transiting through the region to contact their respective airlines and to check emails and SMS updates before arriving at the airport. Passengers are also advised to visit the official airport website to verify their flight details. Further, the Controller General of Immigration and Immigration has granted a 2-week visa grace period for foreign air passengers who are unable to depart Sri Lanka under the current situation. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka disclosed it is closely monitoring the developments in the Middle East. Sri Lankan citizens in the region are urged to exercise extreme caution in view of the prevailing instability. They are advised to follow Middle Eastern media and official announcements of host countries and to avoid non-essential travel and large public gatherings. The ministry also requests all Sri Lankans in the Middle East to remain in constant contact with the nearest Sri Lankan diplomatic missions. All Sri Lankan missions in the region have activated 24-hour emergency hotlines to provide assistance. Accordingly, the public has been requested to contact the Consular Affairs Division of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on 0094 742 595 546. Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment via 0094 71 980 2822. And the emergency hotline 1989. Meanwhile, Sri Lankan ambassador to Israel, Nimal Bandara, confirmed to Ada Derana that the persisting situation in Israel remains tense in some areas, but overall conditions are being closely monitored. He clarified that the Sri Lankan nationals are safe at this time and that there have been no major incidents affecting the Sri Lankan community. He noted that the embassy has advised all Sri Lankans to remain vigilant, follow local security guidelines, avoid high-risk areas, and maintain regular contact with the embassy. He assured that at present there is no immediate need for evacuation and the Israeli government is capable of handling the situation, and the Sri Lanka embassy is closely monitoring developments and continuing to provide guidance to Sri Lankans. He further said to Ada Derana that the embassy is in constant communication with the government of Sri Lanka and relevant authorities regarding the safety and welfare of the Sri Lankans. Those planning to travel for employment are advised to closely monitor developments and stay in close contact with licensed foreign employment agencies before departure. He further clarified that at present no travel advisory have been issued and the situation is under continuous review. However, Ben Gurion Airport is currently closed until further notice. The Sri Lankan ambassador to Kuwait reveals that there are about 175,000 Sri Lankans in Kuwait and that there have been no casualties reported so far. The airspace is closed and the ambassador claims that it is unlikely to reopen anytime soon.
All Sri Lankans are safe, so we are keeping touch with them through WhatsApp and social media. And also today we started calling our community leaders because we are going to request them to inform if there is any incident related to Sri Lankan in the area that they are living. We observe situation 24 hours. We have a hotline which is operated over 24 hours.
When contacted by Ada Derana, Sri Lankan embassies in Turkey, Beirut and Cairo characterized the situation in their respective host countries as peaceful. However, the embassies claim that local authorities have informed citizens to be vigilant and follow local security guidelines. Meanwhile, Consulate General of Sri Lanka in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, claims the situation in Dubai has returned to normal following the attack which targeted the Dubai International Airport. However, considering the suspension of airport operations, all foreign passengers have been directed to hotels until further notice, with the Dubai International Airport promising to cover 50% of all hotel room rentals.
Now, leader of the opposition, Sajid Premadasa, urges the government to take immediate measures to ensure the safety and well-being of Sri Lankan employees currently working in Middle Eastern nations. He made this appeal today amid escalating tensions between Israel and Iran. A significant number of Sri Lankans are employed in the Middle East. As military tensions flare up, we must mobilize efforts to protect our people. To that end, the government must do its utmost. The government must initiate extraordinary measures to ensure the safety, protection and well-being of Sri Lankans in the Middle East. Welcome back. Now, amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, long queues were reported at fuel stations across the country last night and again this morning as motorists rushed to fill their tanks fearing possible shortages. However, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation assures to the public that fuel stocks are sufficient for more than a month and urged people to not panic or engage in unnecessary hoarding.
Following the outbreak of violence in the Middle East, long queues of vehicles were reported at filling stations across the country from last night. The queues continued this morning amid fears of a possible fuel shortage. The rush is believed to have been triggered by misinformation and unfounded speculation circulating on fuel supplies. In several areas, attempts by some individuals to pump fuels into containers led to tense situations at certain filling stations. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, however, strongly emphasized that there is no risk of an imminent fuel crisis. CPC Chairman DJ Rajakaruna stated that based on existing reserves and shipments currently arriving in the country, fuel stocks are sufficient to meet Sri Lanka's energy needs for more than a month.
At this point, it is clear that unnecessary fear has been created among the public regarding the fuel supply, leading to an artificial crisis. I have repeatedly stated that there is no reason for such a concern. We have sufficient fuel stocks in the country. Based on the fuel currently in storage and the shipments that are on the way to Sri Lanka, we have adequate fuel supplies. Our current petrol stock is sufficient for 37 days, while diesel stocks can meet demand for 35 days. Super diesel stocks are sufficient to cover 72 days. Our jet fuel stocks are sufficient to cover 47 days. These figures clearly show that there is no shortage of fuel stocks at present. Another concern raised is whether the current global situation will affect Sri Lanka in the future. The majority of our refined petrol and diesel is imported from India and Singapore. Therefore, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz does not have an impact on our fuel supplies. In fact, only one shipment arrived from Oman in the past year. All other shipments were sourced from outside the Middle East. Current fuel orders are being shipped from India and Singapore. There are no issues in importation at the moment. Orders for April and May have already been confirmed and there are no expected delays in their arrival. Therefore, I state responsibly based on data and statistics, and there is no risk of fuel stocks running out. The public does not need to panic or queue up.
He further warned that strict legal action will be taken against those hoarding fuel.
We will ensure continuous supply of fuel and we state this with full responsibility. We have observed that some individuals are attempting to hoard fuel. All petrol stations have been instructed not to provide fuel to those engaging in such behavior. The police have also been informed and will take immediate action to address this issue. Strict legal measures will be enforced against anyone found hoarding fuel. We urge the public to inform the police if they witness such activities. The police are fully prepared to take necessary action.
Meanwhile, farmers' associations have appealed to authorities to ensure that adequate fuel supplies are made available for vehicles transporting agricultural produce. The Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited announced that full distribution operations will continue as usual today and tomorrow despite the Voyaday holiday. Accordingly, Bowsers were seen transporting fuel this afternoon from storage facilities operated by the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, ensuring uninterrupted supply of filling stations.
We had not planned to distribute fuel today, but due to the way the public has been purchasing fuel, we called upon all employees and resumed fuel distribution today. We will continue to provide fuel tomorrow as well, even though it is a poor day. At the moment, Bowsers are reaching nearly all fuel stations and refilling has already begun. Any petrol station running low on fuel can place an order and receive the required supply.
Global oil markets surged after US and Israeli strikes on Iran intensified conflict in the Middle East, sending Brent crude up 10% to around $80 a barrel. Fears of supply disruptions grew as tanker operations halted shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, a key route for over 20% of global oil flows. Analysts warned prices could spike to $100, with certain forecasts estimating a potential loss of up to 10 million barrels per day if the strait closes. Asian governments and refiners are now reviewing stockpiles and alternative supply routes amid rising geopolitical risk.
Now, Member of Parliament Dilith Jayavira and leader of the Sarvajana Balaya reiterates the importance of an entrepreneurial state and asserts that no developed nation amassed wealth by means otherwise. Meanwhile, Professor Channa Jayasumana, Vice Chairman of the Sarvajana Balaya, asserts that Sri Lanka's power sector woes could exacerbate as a result of the coal scam and the war raging on in the Middle East.
The Dankutu Motamulla Division's Sarvajana Sabha within the Puttalam district was officially inaugurated yesterday under the patronage of MP Dilith Jayavira, leader of the Sarvajana Balaya. The ceremony was attended by party representatives and local supporters, marking a further statement in expanding the movement's grassroots network within the district.
Within just a year and a half into the new government's term of office, its public approval has begun to plummet. The incumbent government made tackling corruption its key issue to seize power. Notwithstanding that rhetoric, a coal scam of unprecedented caliber has been perpetrated. The power output generated by incinerating a ton of coal today is only a fraction of what it used to be in the past. To compensate for the deficit, we may have to burn diesel. We will have to spend quite a bit for that. This issue will cascade into more issues down the line. Furthermore, we will have to import several other shipments to meet the country's energy demand. Israel and Iran are now at war. Global logistics have been disrupted. Sri Lanka's energy sector is most likely to be engulfed in crisis because of the government's coal scam. We have frequently been deceived at the polls. However, this is deceit on an entirely different level. They uttered more lies than those uttered in the past 76 years collectively. They have committed all wrongdoings committed in the last 76 years. What we want is to move forward with all patriotic Sri Lankans and to see all their lives improve. However, our current trajectory is the exact opposite. We entered politics because we noticed that reality. We are products of free education, well acquainted with the woes of the common man. Sarvajana Sabhas will help usher everyone out of this dependent attitude. Let's rise together. Our journey is one that shares entrepreneurial knowledge and raises awareness on creativity. Every developed nation became so because they embraced entrepreneurship as a state. No country in recent history has developed otherwise. Therefore, we invite you to join us. We will never engage in politics that will disappoint you, neither will we take decisions that disappoint you. Trust the medallion. Join us. Welcome back. Now in some breaking and some concerning news, the Minister of Defence of the United Arab Emirates has announced that Sri Lankan nationals are among 58 individuals who sustained minor injuries during the recent attacks. A total of 541 Iranian drones were detected, of which 506 were intercepted and destroyed, while 35 fell within the country, causing material damage. The incident resulted in 3 fatalities of Pakistani, Nepali and Bangladeshi nationals and 58 minor injuries among Emirati, Egyptian, Ethiopian, Filipino, Pakistani, Iranian, Indian, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan, Azerbaijani, Yemeni, Ugandan, Eritrean, Lebanese and Afghan nationals. The number of Sri Lankans injured remains unclear. The ministry expressed its full readiness to address any threats and stressed that the safety of citizens, residents and visitors remains a top priority and one that cannot be compromised. In other local news, Prime Minister Dr. Harni Amarasuri assures that the government does not intend to infringe upon the freedoms of Sri Lanka's university students. During a recent meeting held with medical students, the Prime Minister also stated that a committee will be appointed to formulate a national policy on medical education. During a recent meeting held at the Temple Trees, members of the Medical Faculty Students Action Committee outlined issues currently faced by university students to Prime Minister Dr. Harni Amarasuri.
මේ වෙනකොට රජයේ වෛද්‍ය පීඨවලට අදාළව මතුවලා තියෙන ගැටළු ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ ගැටළු ප්‍රමාණය සම්බන්ධවවත් සාකච්ඡා කරන්නට විශේෂයෙන්ම අලුතින් ආරම්භ වෙච්ච වෛද්‍ය පීඨයේ විදිහට පවතින ගොවිල්ලස්ස, මොරටුව, ඒ වගේම වයඹ සහ සබරගමුවට අදාළව තියෙන ගැටළු ප්‍රමාණයක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
At the meeting, students highlighted the need for a comprehensive national policy on medical education. In response, the Prime Minister stated that a committee will be appointed to formulate such a policy and invited student unions to submit proposals towards its development.
The committee will be mandated to review not only medical education but also vocational education and higher education institutions that are not supervised by the University Grants Commission. We met with the deans and vice chancellors of the medical faculties and conveyed the need for a national policy on medical education. They agreed to intervene accordingly.
The Prime Minister also urged student unions to support efforts to eliminate violence and ragging in universities while assuring that the government does not intend to infringe upon student freedoms. Now, Indian Air Force's firepower demonstration Vayu Shakti 2026 kicked off on Friday under the patronage of Indian President Draupadi Murmu. Vayu Shakti aims to showcase the Indian Air Force's operational preparedness, precision strike capability and the ability to undertake multi-domain operations.
Might in the sky, the Indian Air Force is showcasing its strength and readiness for battle. This is Vayu Shakti 2026, organized by Indian Air Force under the patronage of the President of India, Her Excellency Srimati Draupadi Murmu.
Designed to simulate a live battlefield environment, Vayu Shakti featured the participation of more than 130 aircraft, showcasing the operational depth and aerial strength of the Indian Air Force. Notably, frontline fighter jets including Dassault Mirage 2000 and the Dassault Rafale were deployed, underscoring India's air superiority across South Asia. The exercise also highlighted India's indigenous defense capabilities, with the advanced Akash missile system prominently displayed as part of the demonstration. As night fell over Pokhran, the sky was illuminated by a coordinated drone display, vividly recreating operational maneuvers carried out during Operation Sindoor and symbolically portraying precision engagement against hostile forces.
Of 530,620 tourists have arrived in Sri Lanka as of the 25th of February this year, with 253,293 tourist arrivals recorded in the month of February alone. According to data from the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of tourist arrivals for the month of February so far were recorded on the 12th, with 12,731 tourists visiting the country. India continues to be Sri Lanka's top source market, with 41,786 Indian tourists visiting the country as of the 25th of February, while the United Kingdom trails in second with 28,222 tourist arrivals. A significant number of tourist arrivals were also recorded from the Russian Federation, Germany, China and France. That's all for tonight from First to 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Other Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.
From across the nation and around the world, this is Sri Lanka's #1 news source, Other Derana.